Hey guys, since I have to be gone again today, I thought that I would give another try to the screencast. It seemed to work okay last time, and I promise this one will be much shorter. Really, what I'm asking you to do today should be fairly simple. I just think we just really need to look at our evidence and ask a few questions of it. So, today is all about bolstering your positions by adding relevant evidence. So, all that means is really striving to find the best possible evidence to support your argument and your individual reasons. So if you think about some of the things that we had learned in our last unit when we were writing about your fantasy dystopian books, to really get away from summarizing what was happening in your books, I asked you to find places, certain scenes, lines, and quotes from your book to really back up whatever it was that you were saying in your companion books. So if you told me that you thought Katniss was a really brave person, but you never gave me any evidence of her doing anything brave, your argument was pretty much invalid, right? If I disagreed and I thought Katniss was lucky instead of just brave, I could poke some serious holes in your argument. If you told me she was brave and then you included all the instances of her doing something, volunteering in her sister's place, um, later on in the series when she does more for the whole revolution, right? Those things were going to actually support what you were trying to prove. And so, that very same thing that we did in our last unit, we're kind of coming back to. We're just making it really clear that the evidence that you provide is going to directly correlate to whatever argument, whatever claim that you're trying to make. So today I just want to kind of go over a few things, and I want to teach you that when you're defending an argument with textual evidence, one of the most important moves is to really sift through that evidence. You can't just present evidence in the order of which you discovered it. So if you go to Google and you start searching and you find one thing that, sounds good and it seems to go with your argument, you can't necessarily just plug it in and hope to God that it works okay. You really need to sort through your evidence and rank it, deciding on which evidence matches each point and which is the most compelling. Meaning, what is going to really move a person that's maybe on the fence to your side of the argument. So, you want the strongest, most compelling facts and evidence. You want to present that early on, and you want to present that all the way throughout your essay so you never lose your reader. You don't lose anybody in your audience. So, today I have a few things that you're going to be looking at individually, but you will get some time to work with the people at your group since I'm not there to kind of lead the whole class discussion. But we're looking at a specific example. So, let's say this is a student's example, and they are on the negative side of competitive sports. And one of their reasons is this, that competitive sports put too much pressure on the kids who play them. Okay? This necessarily couldn't be their entire essay, but this could be one of their body paragraphs. This is one of their reasons. Maybe they have some other issues with, injuries, with time management, but in this particular paragraph, we're just talking about the pressure. And so I think it's important to just clarify what I mean when I say pressure. Maybe some of you have had to try out for any clubs or like elite groups. But often, kids aren't really experiencing, this type of pressure, maybe until like high school or like varsity level athletics. Meaning that maybe there's tryouts, maybe 50 kids try out and there's only 15 different positions to be filled. That often doesn't really, you know, hit kids until later in life. So maybe you've experienced that, maybe you haven't. Um, for example, my high school had a crazy huge volleyball program. We had 4 teams for women's volleyball. And I went to a school with, all 4 grades, and there were less than 200 people in my entire high school. So pretty much every, female that could went out for volleyball. And so the pressure was huge. We had 2 weeks of tryouts where we had 2-a-day practices, one in the morning and then another one early in the evening. And then we had a workout that we were supposed to attend, in small groups. And so you were constantly being watched. There were all kinds of coaches, walking around in the weight room, walking around at open gyms, walking around during the practices, taking notes. You can kind of tell they were, making eye contact with each other if someone did something great or if somebody did something not so great. So when I say pressure, it can be a number of things, just trying to earn your spot on the team. Think about the pressure that maybe you felt if you had a friend's parent that was particularly loud, right? In the bleachers or on the sidelines, that one that just always seems to have something to say, even if you think you did something really great, of course they have to have a comment. So when we talk pressure, it can be a number of things. So it's kind of open to interpretation. So that really means that the evidence provided to support this particular argument and this particular reason needs to be very, very strong, and the writer needs to make the connection very clear to me. Because if I don't know what pressure you're talking about or you haven't made that clear, you're going to lose me as your reader. Okay? So you guys have a document that you're going to be working on together in a small group, and it looks like this. This one's on Google Classroom in today's post. So I just want to go over something before you guys work on this in your small groups. So there are 3 different pieces of evidence on here. You can see that I have them numbered 1, 2, and 3. Your job is to think about which pieces of evidence would be most convincing to the writer's audience and which ones wouldn't be. So you can see in bold, I have a spot for you to write your ranking. I'd like you to rank the evidence in order from 1 to 3, with 1 being the strongest, most compelling, best evidence to go with this particular argument. We're just talking pressure. Okay. So think about which one would be the most convincing. I just want to read through them and just quickly think out loud before I turn you loose to work on this, independently. So the first piece of evidence here says, while competitive, organized sports are often seen as a positive way for your child to spend his time, some of the pressures of sports could become a negative impact on kids in general. The rest here, since it's in parentheses, is just the in-text citation. So it's just showing you the name of the article, the author, and then the site that was found. This one was from Livestrong. So if a reader wanted to, they could go and visit that website themselves, or they could maybe do some fact checking. Okay? So what you would do is, once you've read all 3, you would put your ranking 1, 2, or 3 here, and then where it says justification, you're just explaining your ranking. So if you rank this one at number 1, telling me that this is the strongest, most compelling, why? Why does this particular piece of evidence go with the argument competitive sports put too much pressure on kids? The second one is a little bit longer, and there are some kind of vocabulary words that I want to quickly go over. This one says, immediately before the final period began, the coach would point at David and begrudgingly insert him at right fullback for the requisite minimum amount all kids must play. He made it painfully clear to the others that my brother was the weakest of all weak links, that he was useless as a soccer player. Again, the rest is just the citation. This one is interesting because it's written almost like a story. And it sounds like it's written by the kid's brother. So I think they mentioned the kid's name is David. And then at the end, he says he made it painfully clear to the others that my brother. So Jeff Pearlman, the author of this article, is apparently the brother of David. When he says the coach begrudgingly insert him, it means that coach isn't doing this because he's really pumped and trusts David. It's almost like he is forced to. He has to. Almost like, all right, David, your time's up. Got to go in. He's not getting him all psyched and pumped and putting him in because, he's the best player and just had to take a quick break on the sidelines. It's more of a, I guess, I have to put you in. So when he would do this, it was only for the requisite minimum amount of time all kids must play. So basically, he's forced to put David in because at whatever level or particular age that David was playing soccer, um, there was some sort of a minimum that everyone had to play. So whether that's 20 minutes or something like that, everyone had to play the same amount. Not even the same amount, I should say. There was a minimum, and it sounds like he would wait until the final period to let David even participate. So he sat cold for the first part of the game, and then maybe there were 20 minutes left, and he's like, "Ugh, it's time to put David in because he has to play 20 minutes like all the other kids." And so it was never, hey, let's give David a chance to participate. Let's see how he does as a starter. Let's see how he fares maybe in a different position. It's let's wait until we absolutely have to put him in and not let him have any extra playing time. So think about that particular piece of evidence and how that one supports the argument that competitive sports put too much pressure on the kids who play them. Again, you'll put your ranking and your justification below. The third one, this piece of evidence is a little bit longer. It says one of the most comprehensive surveys to date by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that from 1979 to 1999, sports and recreation-related injuries were more common nationwide than injuries from traffic accidents. Americans aged 5 to 24 were most likely to be treated for sports-related injuries by health professionals. Kids 5 to 14 had the highest injury rates of all, 59.3 episodes per 1,000 people. Again, the rest is the citation. So after you get through all those numbers and facts, you'd want to put down where this one falls, 1, 2, or 3, and justify it. When you're looking through these pieces of evidence, a few things that might help you really think about how it ties to the argument is to ask yourself 3 questions, and that's which work does this piece of evidence do? What aspect of my point does it support? And which supports my point in the strongest way, really packing a punch? Okay? So ask yourself those questions as you go through each of the pieces of evidence. You may work with the people at your table. Since I read through them, you guys can talk about which one you feel like is the strongest, kind of middle of the road, and then the weakest, meaning that I probably shouldn't even include it in this particular essay or this particular paragraph, really. Okay. The sub will be moving around the room. She knows that you will need to be working with groups, so make sure you're staying on task when you are discussing the evidence. When you're finished with this document, go ahead and turn it in. There are some directions up here as far as what your justifications need to look like, so make sure we're doing well thought out full sentences. Once you have turned in this document, you may head to your competitive sports essays. I'd like you to be working on body paragraphs 2 and 3. We need to do some actual writing of those body paragraphs, and I really want you to be focused on doing just this. Not just taking the first piece of evidence that turns up on Google, but really searching to find the strongest, the best pieces of evidence that go with what you're trying to say. If you're trying to tell me that competitive sports put too much pressure on kids, but yet your evidence points to the amount of concussions and other injuries, that's not going to help that particular paragraph. It helps your overall argument, but it's going to kind of throw your reader if all of a sudden you're talking about stress and then you start dropping, statistics about injuries. Okay, so working on body paragraphs 2 and 3. The last 20 minutes of class, the sub's going to go over something very important, and that's citations and your references. So make sure that you are back in the room and listening. This is extremely important. We will definitely be going over it when I'm back on Wednesday, but I really want you to start thinking about this right now. In-text citations and your reference page entry. This right side can be created by EasyBib if you've used that, but these need to be done by you. Okay? You may email me or chat me with questions. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day and work hard.